Allô, c'est Joshua Takuro ici, professeur chez I.E.F, Institut d'études de la langue française. Dans cette partie de la classe, nous allons apprendre comment gérer la construction d'une phrase avec deux pronoms. Ça veut dire, quand vous avez deux pronoms objets dans une phrase, comment les arranger, comment les mettre en ordre. All right, so basically what we want to do here is when you have two objects in a sentence, all right, and you want to replace them with a pronoun, how do you arrange them in a sentence? It's very simple, very tricky, but very interesting. All right, so if you can wrap your heads around it, you will find it very, 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 very simple. The first case is cas général avec les objets directs et indirects. All right, let's start with COD and COI. All right, let's start with the arrangement of COD and COI. All right, now if you don't understand what I mean by COD, I'm saying complément d'objet direct et complément d'objet indirect. All right, so we have the direct object complement and the indirect object complement. All right, so what we're going to start with today is let us see the arrangement when there are two objects in a sentence. How do we arrange them? All right, the general case. Le cas général, like we have stated here, states that naturally, guys, naturally, ordinarily, the indirect object will come before the direct object. The indirect object comes naturally before the direct object. All right, just to remind you. So what we're saying is that in a sentence where there are two object pronouns, in a sentence where there are two object pronouns, the indirect will come naturally before the direct. For example, all right, to écrire la lettre à moi, in this scenario, la lettre is the direct, à moi, which is me, moi, is the indirect. So this is COD and COI. And I said that naturally, the indirect will come before the direct. Look at the principle here. The indirect comes before the direct. So what I'm going to have is supposed to be tu me l'écris. Tu me l'écris. All right, let me write that properly, please. Tu me l'écris, you write it to me, or you're writing it to me. This is simple. So the direct object pronoun is always placed before the direct. The indirect, rather, is always placed before the direct. In a general case, I need you to get this in a general case. All right, so for example, elle a offert le cadeau à moi. Elle a offert le cadeau, which is the direct object now, et moi, which is the indirect. All right, il me l'a offert. Il me l'a offert. The mo is COI and the la is the COD. All right, I hope that is clear enough. That is the direct object pronoun is going to be placed after the indirect object pronoun. That is the general case. All right, very simple. However, in the next case, in B, which is In a case where the indirect object is a third person, if you notice the example that I made, I have made sure that the third person, that is the indirect object, you notice that the indirect object for the example that I made was not a third person. If you look at the examples that I made, you realize that I deliberately did not make the indirect object a third person. All right? So what we are going to learn now is that in the second case, in the second way, they say that if the indirect object is a third person, for example, tu écris la lettre à Kunle. Kunle is a third person. So what I'm saying here is that the second case says that if the indirect object, which is this here, is a third person, then the direct object will now come before the indirect. All right, so this will now give me oui, je la lui écris. All right, je la lui écris. I am writing it to him. Let us look at the rules. Let us look at where the class is so that we can see what I'm saying. All right, here we say that si le sujet, if the subject, if the object is indirect and it's a third person. All right, if it is a third person, either masculine or feminine or plural, it will be placed after the direct object. So the example says here, elle a offert le cadeau à Kunle. Kunle now is a third person. Therefore, it will be placed after the direct. I said that the general rule says that the indirect will come before the direct. But if the object, the indirect object here is a third person, it is going to be placed after the direct object. So I'm going to have il ne lui a offert. Il ne lui a offert. Le is the COD, which is direct, and lui is the COI, which is the indirect. It's that plain. All right. It might, like I said, it might be tricky, but yes, you can do this. All right. You can do this. You can do this. All right. Finally, in another case, is if you're going to have pronoun en. All right. This is a bit simpler. For pronoun en, whether it is direct or indirect, it will always come after any other pronoun, which is either direct or indirect. All right, so le sujet plus l'objet direct ou indirect plus en before the verb. All right, so elle a offert des cadeaux. All right, you remember when we use we use en to replace an object that is introduced by any of this family, un, une, and the likes. I believe you remember. All right, so in this case, le cadeau is being replaced by en, therefore it's going to come after the direct or the indirect object pronoun. In this case, for both, moi is an indirect object, so it's going to be placed before the en. I think it's a bit simple, tricky, and interesting, but I think that you will need to a bit settle down, look at it again, and read some more examples or create some more examples. Task yourself and see if you can troubleshoot any loophole that we can find with this principle. All right. To really test yourself, I would encourage you to please do exercise the exercise 4 in page 83 and exercise A to F on page 85. Also, for you to get more linking of ideas, please read page 79. All right. Je pense qu'on a fini avec cette leçon. Merci beaucoup pour votre participation dans cette unité et on se verra très bientôt à la troisième unité de votre niveau B1. Merci et à très bientôt.